Hey everybody, it's me, Sara Wiseman. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about you are here as human. And we're going to be exploring a bit about what it means to be human. What it means to be human in this time and place in our evolution, and this time and place as we're heading in. We've already begun the age of Aquarius, and we're heading into this really exceptionally activated time of transition from old awareness into new awareness. And I'm really aware, I sort of dived into some of the demographics of who's watching this particular video. And as I suspected, it's mostly people who are, in their late 30s or older, so they have this sort of maturity level, not only, but just the majority. Quite a few of you are seasoned human beings, as am I, and a lot of women, and from more countries than I expected. That was interesting to me, from more countries than I expected. And I think one of the things that is happening right now in terms of this great battle of separation and oneness, is that a lot of the systems created by patriarchy are dissolving. They're just dissolving in front of our eyes. Now, maybe at the time of watching of this video in particular, they might be like super activated, but the bigger trajectory is that things dissolve. And we might look at this as like, say we were on the advent of the industrial age, right? And say you're a farmer and you're like, I'm farming my farm. I've been farming my farm for generations, and this is how I do things. And I'm farming my farm, and nobody's going to tell me that I have to go work in a factory. This is a little depressing because it sounds pretty horrible to work in the factory, but at the time, farming was this really old way of doing things associated with a lot of poverty, a lot of really hard work, and maybe for a lot of people, the industrial age brought in a lot of welcome change. It was people didn't have to work backbreaking labor as hard or as long, and they started to have technological, actually industrialized machinery that assisted them in doing things that they had to do by hand. But say you're the farmer that's always done things by hand, and your family's family has always done it by hand, and you're like, I will never go to the industrial age. And then of course the industrial age comes, and that's what happens. We can't stop progress, or we can't stop change. And this is kind of what's happening now, as people are seeing the dissolving of all the systems they've been accustomed to. And they're like, wait, I don't want that to dissolve. I'm not ready. I don't have anything to replace it. I don't want to change because I don't know what to do next. It's like when I don't know if you've ever been fired or laid off from a job. I've had both, so that's not fun. But you get the pink slip, or you get the layoff notice, and you have to pack up all your stuff in a little box and walk out that day, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's happened to me several times in the past, and you're just sort of sitting there. Well, now what? All of my identity is totally gone. All of my identity of like, I show up to this job, and I do this job, and I understand this job, and I do all this work, and now it's gone. Who am I? So this is what is happening to a lot of the people who really want to continue grabbing on the old ways. And this, this is both at the everyday person worker level, say, weird terms, but that's just the everyday person level. And it's also happening to the people in power level. The people in power know that no matter how much money they have or how much they're trying to grab on, it's not going to work. The system, the new age, the age of oneness, the age of Aquarius is here. Age of Aquarius is about being progressive, being humanitarian, human rights, community, everyone working together. And the people in the power positions know that the minute we get these ideas like, wow, we can just, do this together. We don't have to have somebody in charge at the top and us flailing around at the bottom. The minute that this happens, they understand that the new system begins to come into position, and this is terrifying to them. This is terrifying to them. It would be kind of depressing, actually, to be at the top power structure of the world and know that the only place you can go is down. That even now, things are changing. There has never been a leadership system that remains at the top, because the top-down leadership system doesn't actually hold. Remember, we are collective. And so this idea of being separated in that way doesn't hold. I wanted to supply to you, to especially some of you who might not have, some of you this is like old news. You've seen this a lot, or it's very, very much what you've already been aware of. And some of you this is going to be a different idea. But as you look at like your own way that you have power or control, especially knowing that a lot of people here watching are women or progressive men, or hopefully we have a lot of different people from different backgrounds, and hopefully we have a lot of people from different countries, from different racial makeups, from different sexual orientations. Hopefully we have a wide array of people that have different ways of expressing themselves. So one of the ways we can look at what our personal holding of power is now in the current system is, and some of this is from, there's a graphic wheel of privilege and oppression. And so just looking at where you fit in terms of where your personal power is, in terms of the society, the particular society that you're living in, like where you live right now. So if you're living in a very progressive place, you're gonna, even if you have a lot of things that might be marginalized in a different place, if you're living in a pretty progressive place, you're gonna do better than usual. If you're living in a place that's very conservative, or that's very based on separation, you're going to really struggle. And so just very quickly, like some of the ways that we get marginalized, and just see what, as I read this, just see what comes to mind for you. I think I'm going to put the link for this in the description, because it's really useful if you haven't come across this. So the first is your skin color. So what's the skin color you have, and how does that fit into where you are and where you live and where you are in the larger society or country you live in? The next is your formal education. How high educational level did you get? That's always a sign of how much power you're going to have. What's your citizenship? Are you a citizen of a powerful country or a citizen of a small country? What's your gender? And that's kind of one of the things I'm especially looking at to this group, because I know there's so many women. What language do you speak? It's going to be a lot easier if you know English or speak English than if you speak some very, small, not much used language. How much wealth do you have? Do you have access to housing? Are you an unsheltered person, or do you have access to housing and you can afford the rent easily and you don't have that anxiety of not knowing if you're going to be sheltered? This could also refer to people in areas where there's natural disasters and suddenly, or there's wars and suddenly they're in a insecure situation. What's your body size? It's we know that people who are very much larger or very much smaller are going to have issues fitting into whatever culture they're in, depending on what that culture thinks. What's your mental health state? What's your neurodiversity level? And I guess I want to say a lot of people here listening to this program, because it's quite a bit around spirituality and intuition, we're going to be slightly different, perhaps not definable as neurodivergent, but we're going to have that sensitivity or that introversion or that taking in a lot of input because we have gifts. And so that's going to put us in a different place. What's your sexuality? Right now, it's very different to be, it's very difficult to be not heterosexual in most countries. And what's your ability? Like, how does is your body, are you able-bodied, or do you have something going on? So depending on how many of those you have, pros and the cons, and again, I'll put the link up. It's an interesting way of looking at what your perceived power is in the world, or what your perceived level of influence is. So what I would like to say, however, is that this chart, which I think is incredibly valuable at helping us establish sort of how the game has been rigged for only a certain group, what this chart doesn't estimate for, interestingly, even though I think it's so good, what this chart doesn't estimate for is our spiritual connection, right? And we can have a person who is absolutely considered by society or culture to be in the lowest space of influence, right? And they have this divine connection, or they have this soul connection where they are blazing light. They have deep knowing. Everyone who comes in contact with them understands their consciousness or awareness. And I would say that as we move into this age of oneness, that's actually the piece that you can work on, regardless of what the culture says, how you have power, you don't have power. Regardless of that, you have control over where you put your mind, and you have control absolutely of your soul is, sovereign. Your soul is independent. Your soul is free, no matter what. Your soul is free. Okay, I'm going to read this. I hope this applies now. I already picked this out. I didn't know this was okay. Oh, here we go. You are here as human. Your earth heart is your greatest tool. More than anything, your heart allows you to experience direct knowing of connected humanity and direct knowing of connected cosmos. It is not that humanity is the whole story, for it is not. But as a human in this lifetime, it is your main focus of experience, as is right and natural. So when you set out to become a better human, a more developed person, a more spiritual person, more of your true self, you will want to work with the heart. There may be resistance. The mind, ego, personality would prefer that your heart is locked away so that the fantasies and projections may run free. Know this, the heart, which is where the soul resides, has more value and opening and brings the greatest riches. Nothing will change you faster than to open your heart to the world. Nothing will change the world faster than you opening your heart. What are they saying? Opening your heart to what? To each other? Yes. To yourself? Yes. To the idea of this idea that we are all connected? Yes. To the divine, whatever that means for you? Yes. To the universe? Yes. You just open up. I think there's one more that I wanted to read. Maybe actually a couple more. So just relax. I'm going to read all of these. Okay. Go ahead and relax. This will be how we kind of close out today. Opening from pain. We have spoken of the idea that the first heart opening is from pain. The heart is tightly wrapped, tightly shrouded in a very dark place, whimpering in its own misery. It is a wound that will not heal. Yet at some time, in some moment, a piece of light, which is the awareness of connection that comes with consciousness, will arrive. You can't keep it out. It finds its way. There is no one of you who will not be offered this experience hundreds, thousands, millions of times in a lifetime. Let go of pain. Let the light come in. The first opening. All of you are offered this experience, this awareness, this connection multiple times in every moment of every day. Connection is always here. It is just a matter of paying attention. When light strikes the heart, tightly shrouded in its box of misery, the heart begins to awaken. It begins to remember its true belonging as the heart of all hearts, soul of all souls, one of all, one. And it begins to escape from pain and come into a different aspect of itself. As soon as the light is recognized, there is the instantaneous opening into more light. This is where the heart remembers its true nature and begins to move from misery, self-absorption, self-pity, agony, despair, into a higher state of being. The heart looks around and notices it is not alone. Others are suffering too. This is the first opening. The heart awakens to compassion. When you begin to look up from your own misery, your tightly wound, wrapped and suffocated package of despair, the wounding that never stops hurting, the ache that does not go away, you look around that first time in shock and disbelief and absolute acceptance as you see that other people's hearts are in the same place, tightly wound, wounded, wrapped and packaged against further harm. Even as the wrapping is shred and tattered by the constant onslaught of the world, you look, you stare, you gasp, it is all the same. All hearts are wounded, all beings suffer. Now, it doesn't end that way. It doesn't end on all beings suffer and then like that's it. We'll go next time to the answer or the antidote or the way of moving past this idea. But this idea that the heart is where everything happens. And interesting, so this is the Gabriel messages. In the Star Guide messages, which came after, all they talked about, we're going to cover that later, all they talked about is the heart, the human heart. The human heart, and it's our ability to feel and to connect. So this is where it's all happening. We sometimes think the soul's, up here, the crown chakra or the third eye. It's like, no, it's in the human heart. This is the place. And the first step of opening is to feel our pain. And the next step of opening is to look around and see with compassion that others are also suffering. And that's where, going back to that exercise we did earlier, like if you know that you're doing okay at some level, you might look and see who's doing not so okay and attempt to assist them if possible, or at the very least, to be kind to them, to stand up for them, to not allow separation to come in, so that this oneness that exists now, all that's happening is the separation is dissolving, and you can be a part of that by your own allowing yourself to feel everything and to know that others feel also. Alrighty, we'll be back next time. You'll find me at sarawiseman.com. Those of you who want to work with me, I offer group training. Those of you who want to study on your own, there's tons of self-study classes and of course all the books. All right, everybody, see you next time. Thanks for listening.